Welcome to Feed and Grain Chat. I'm your host, Elise Schaefer, editor of Feed and Grain magazine. This edition of Feed and Grain Chat is brought to you by Watt Global Media and feedandgrain.com. Feedandgrain.com is your source for the latest news, product, and equipment information for the grain handling and feed manufacturing industries. Today, I'm joined on Zoom by Ryan Moorman, Vice President and Project Manager for Rulfus at Boone. He's here to talk about grain cooling and conditioning and how to keep aeration systems in top shape over the summer months. Hi, Ryan. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Elise. Thanks for having me. Thanks so much for bringing me on.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Harvest preparation for co-ops and grain handlers means equipment maintenance season. Can you discuss what kind of annual maintenance and cleaning is key for optimal aeration fan performance?
Yeah, absolutely. When specifically talking about aeration fans, whether that's centrifugal fans, axial fans, or your rooftop exhausters, there's certainly a few things that you want to look out for when getting ready for harvest. The number one thing would be to check for any debris or buildup, garbage, bird nests, anything like that on the actual fan wheel or blade. If you do have any buildup, you want to make sure that that gets cleaned. Make sure that your wheel or blade is still in balance and that any debris is removed from there at that time. Once that's done, you want to go ahead and check your motor and make sure that it's still spinning freely and correctly, as well as lubricated and greased per the manufacturer's recommendation. And then lastly, with your aeration fans, really what you want to do is just check the housing for any cracks or rust, holes, anything like that. Make sure that those are getting repaired or replaced as needed and everything's good on that end. Aeration fans really should last a long time, 20 plus years, 30 plus years when used properly and maintained properly.
So temperature cables are commonly used in grain bins to determine when and for how long to run aeration systems. Do you have any recommendations for maximizing cable functionality or longevity?
The cable system, very important part for a grain handling facility in their decision-making process. And in order to make the best decisions, you got to have accurate and quick information. So prior to filling these bins during harvest, there are a few things that you want to check. Firstly, you want to get in there while the bin's empty and make sure that there aren't any knots in the cables themselves and that they are secured properly to the bottom of the floor bin. Next, you want to go through and use your ohm reading feature on your cable reader. This will check all of your sensors to see if they're working properly or not. If you do have some sensors out on a cable, it's really not that big of a deal. Really what you're looking for is having 2 or 3 consecutive sensors that are out and causing a large gap in your coverage in your bin. If that's the case, then yes, you will want to have your cable replaced at that time. Third, you want to double check and clean out any portable reading boxes. Make sure there's no debris in there. You want to inspect your conduit and lead wire for any damage, whether that's an accident or rodents or whatever it might be. You want to make sure that you're good there. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you're doing a number of test runs through your whole temperature monitoring system prior to harvest to make sure that everything is working properly as you like it. And if not, you can bring in a service crew at that time if needed.
Excellent. Aeration ducts are another component for grain conditioning and cooling. How often should ducts be inspected or replaced?
Whether we're talking about full round ducts or half round ducts or aeration sheeting in a flush floor system, we recommend that your materials are inspected every time that you empty the bin. Anytime that you can get in there and check those out is a good time to go do that. Over time, those perforations can become clogged, especially if you're having to store a higher moisture commodity in there. That's when you tend to see those issues. So each time that bin's empty, get in there, look for any clogging going on, make sure that gets cleaned out. And at that time, you're also looking for any damage to ductwork, whether it might be crushed, whether it might be rusted, or any large holes in the sheets or anything like that. You want to make sure that you don't have any areas of leakage is really what you're looking for. A damaged aeration system isn't able to perform properly as designed. And when that's the case, obviously it's putting that whole bin at risk. And that's the last thing that we want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we're talking about maintenance, inspections, anything that has to be done around electrical, or if there's potential for confined space entry, Safety is always a concern. Can you talk about the role of safety procedures, whether it's your team conducting maintenance or someone doing it on their own facility?
Yeah, absolutely. Safety is obviously a huge priority and our number one priority. So the truth of the matter is we work around large, heavy moving equipment at a grain handling facility. So the job is just inherently dangerous. So again, we always have to keep safety at the forefront, whether we're talking about a lockout tagout procedure, using proper PPE or using CO2 monitors in confined spaces, whatever it might be. We like to make sure that our guys, when they get on site, they have a meeting with the facility manager or whoever's in charge at that time to make sure that all these things are planned for. They're discussed ahead of time and there's no surprises later on. A lot of times there's a lot of pressure to get these jobs done as quickly as possible, both from the customer and from the bosses at times, but safety always has to remain the number one priority. The big thing that we talk about is if at any time, if you're not sure, just stop and ask questions, stop and ask for help, stop and make sure that you're proceeding safely and in a proper way. We talk all the time about the number one goal of the day is to make sure that everyone gets to go home safely. And that really is our focus when we're out on a job site.
Well, thank you for your time today. That's all the questions I had for you. Appreciate you coming on, Ryan.
Great. Thank you so much, Elise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching this edition of Feed and Grain Chat. Be sure to tune in for my next edition right here at feedandgrain.com.